Thank you for listening to the Old English D podcast. New episodes are live every Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe and follow to keep up to date on all the new episodes. And as we always say, go Tigers.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kasey, as always joined by Josh, my friend. The Tigers are 16-12. We just beat the Royals to start off the season series against them. I'm on cloud nine. How are you feeling?
It's been a nice week of Tigers baseball. Solid week all around. Ups and downs a little bit, but we're solid 4-2 week from the boys.
I am very happy I was wrong, by the way. I know I made the prediction that they were going to lose the Royals series. I was very low on the Royals series. They, of course, won in Tampa. I want everyone to know I'm happy to be wrong. I'm very, very okay with being wrong. And this was a series specifically that felt like we had to win, and I'm very, very happy we came on top. I don't know what this podcast would look like if the Tigers had lost today, specifically against the Royals in the final game. But spirits are high. We're living large. Man, I'm just so glad that we were able to overcome that. And on top of that, they have now reached the threshold of what I thought their win total would be at the end of April. So what does that mean for the card series coming up? I don't know. I feel like I've been somewhat right or kind of right about a lot of things with my predictions so far. And this is another one where I'd like to be wrong. Can we do 18? Can we do 18 wins? Oh my gosh. The potential's there.
We need just one win to guarantee a positive record going into May.
Is it just to guarantee positive? Okay. Well, but wouldn't it have been 15-15? So like now that we're at 16.
Oh no, you're totally right.
Okay.
My math is completely off. We have guaranteed a positive into May.
Well, and that's what's so crazy is like I didn't think we'd be in this position. And not only that, like, and not to make it a little bit of a negative, but like if you would have told me that the Tigers are 16-12 with 2 more games left to play in April and we're in 3rd place in the Central, I think I'd be down pretty bad. But that's the situation we're in. The Central's a lot better than we thought it would be, at least in April. You're not much scoreboard watch in April. I can't take my eyes off of it. It's created a lot of consternation in our friendship. I understand. It's fine. But the Tigers are doing things. They're winning baseball games, and that's all that matters. And you're 100% right about that. That is all that matters. But other than the Tigers, how was your weekend? Do you have a good weekend?
Yeah. Pretty okay. We got outside, did a little picnic activity yesterday, and
what park did we go to?
One off 96 over here, Cascade Township Park, okay. I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very familiar.
Pickleball courts there. Didn't know if you were aware. They have,
really? I didn't know there were any pickleball courts there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Huh? Yeah, I only know the ones with Ada. So that's interesting. Did you break out the pickleball racket?
No, I was there with the wife and daughter, and we were.
Oh,
Sailor's first real time trying to walk on grass, and it was quite the event because apparently to small children, carpeting and grass are 2 different things, and you can't walk on grass.
I feel like the uneven ground wouldn't help. She barely figured out how to do carpet. Thought of
There are times when carpet is a struggle, so I do get it. But no, did that. Tried to get out of the house because the apartment, our air conditioning is still broken again, apparently from last fall. And
God, dude, like
but that's a whole.
It's been so humid and it's been so gross the last couple of days. I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm so sorry that your apartment complex has it out against you, because I would have burned the place down if it had been at that point. It's like over 80 degrees, right?
Apparently. My wife is much more patient, kind person in this whole situation than I am. I'm glad that she's been the one talking on the phone to these office people, because at this point I don't know how sanctified I would be in talking. So
you're over talking. It is time for action at this point.
Some kind of action.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I hope you get that fixed, buddy. That sounds really bad. I couldn't imagine with the. I mean, like, spring, summer. It all approaches fast. But I'm glad you were able to get outside and get out of the wrong kind of heat, the gross heat inside the apartment. If it makes you feel any better, I also don't have central air in our home, but I just have a little wall or a window AC unit, and it's so loud. It's just so loud, and for some reason, like, my room is like isolated from the rest of the house, and like the rest of the house can stay cool just fine with some windows open and stuff, but like for some reason my little alcove of the house just is a broiler for heat. So I don't really get it, and so like I have to run that thing more than I would like, and really more than honestly like more than I do. Like I just don't run that thing enough, and so like it's just always kind of hot and sticky. So I feel where you're coming from, but having a small child and a wife in the situation, I'm sure it wouldn't make things much better. But to counteract, but also kind of go along with the heat of your apartment, the Tigers are red hot too. So you have some wins and you have some losses, I guess. But all right. Well, that's good. As I mentioned, the Tigers are 16-12. We have some takeaways to talk about. We have another Tigers podcast to talk about. Can't believe we're going to talk about that, but another new Tigers podcast to talk about, because that's what happens when Tigers are good. Podcasts start, teams are good in general. Teams, they seem to breed other extensions of things when they play well. So we're going to do a little preview of the May schedule, and then we're going to talk about the upcoming series, because this is the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. You can find us on all of the socials at the Old English D pod, and of course you can listen to us on all of the usual streaming services wherever you get your podcasts. Josh, let's jump right into it. I have been right about a few things, as I mentioned, about these predictions and whatnot. I feel like a lot of things are coming true. A lot of things are coming close. Here's one thing I was very wrong about, and that thing is Wencio Perez. And I am here to admit that I don't even think I went live or like went on air with some of these takes, because they were just preliminary takes. But Wencio Perez in spring training, he just didn't do it for me. He didn't look very complete. It looked like, oh, here's this guy that we've signed back in 2017 when he was like a 16-year-old, and we've heard of Wencio Perez for, I mean, it kind of has been ages, but it feels like ages for certain. And the product that I saw in his first real spring training just wasn't anything to write home about. He made a couple weird flagrant errors, first in the infield, and then they completely moved in the outfield, and then he stayed in the outfield forever. And that was annoying. And then his bat didn't look, and his at-bats didn't look anything too great until the end of spring, when he really started to kind of, okay, this is what his bat can do. He started to put together some better at-bats. I think once he kind of realized, oh, I'm not going to make the team, there's no real reason to have a lot of pressure on myself, maybe it freed him up a little bit. Well, some injuries to the infield. Gio Urshela and Andy Ibanez have brought him the opportunity to play in the majors. And, man, the kid is just fun to watch. His smile, his charisma. He's not, he made that error in the outfield with Parker and the whole miscommunication thing. We've talked about that. That, obviously can't overlook everything. He's had some couple miscues in the outfield for sure. But the dude can put together a complete at-bat. And he's batting in the middle of the order. It seems like that is mostly because he's a switch hitter, and AJ loves his switch hitters, as do I. And it creates a lot of conversation that has to be had later in the game when a team wants to take out their starter and put in the bullpen, and it creates a lot of situations, and that's all AJ's trying to do, is put the other manager in a situation. Got his first home run today after just missing one the night before, and it just looks like he is taking hold of this moment and saying, you're not taking this away from me, because the Tigers have some pretty big decisions to make here coming up with Andy coming off of the IL, probably tomorrow to begin the Cardinal series, and then Gio's probably not far behind. He's making it a tough conversation because I wouldn't send this kid down right now. Outside of the home run, he's put together some really good at-bats, drew a couple important walks, but then also, too, some really important knocks. And he's kind of making the other rookie in the lineup, Colt Keith, look even more lost than unfortunately he looks. And he's looked like a very good baseball player. I was wrong about Wenceel Perez. What have you seen out of him?
Kid's only 24 years old. As a 24-year-old, he doesn't look like he's overwhelmed by the moment. A little bit in the outfield, like you said, he has had a couple moments where he looked a little bit unsure of himself, but that comes with learning a new position like he is. Still pretty new to the outfield scene, but when it comes to the plate, when it comes to running the bases, he's been that spark that Javi has been providing a little bit, but something that we've missed from having the Baду type on the team. To see him hit his home run tonight or this afternoon rather, that was pretty cool. We were watching the game and I was telling Alex about the near miss he had last night. He promptly swatted the next one into the bleachers, and I was like, well, then there you go. Don't have to worry about it. No, I'm super excited, and it's one of those guys that, you hear about international free agent signing or something like that, and then you hear it and then you never hear about him again, or you don't hear about him for years and years. It kind of takes them out of that public eye to the point where they can probably develop better by themselves. But I don't know. He's looked really good right now, and he's making these decisions difficult. And it's really unfortunate because both guys that have come up because of injuries, both Perez and Buddy Kennedy, have both looked serviceable in the majors. Buddy has a home run as well, and he's shored up some defensive things that I think I was not really expecting out of him. And then Wenceel providing the offense and the base running and just the athleticism that this team hasn't had towards the middle of the order. It's definitely turning some heads and making probably Scott and AJ a little more uncomfortable with the decisions they have to make than they were hoping to be. But one thing I wanted to address with the whole Wenceel Perez and hitting third, a lot of people out there, and I can fall into this as well, but there's a lot of people out there that see the lineup get posted and they're like, wow, Wenceel Perez is our number 3 hitter, and they go, oh, no, he's not a number 3 hitter. This team is awful. Wenceel Perez is hitting third. What is going on? All of that. Everybody needs to relax. That is a batting order creation tactic of the past now, and everybody needs to understand that. In a perfect world, when you have the perfect player for every single lineup spot, would you put Wenceel Perez third? Absolutely not. But this is mix and match baseball on a team that doesn't have 9 dedicated players to every position. 1 player for each position, and you're going to hit the same guys every single day. Not how it works. And even if it did work that way, there's a lot of different ways to construct a lineup these days. And I think on a traditional team, you would not have Riley Green leading off either. And nobody complains about Riley leading off because he's good at, being in that position. He walks a lot. He makes a lot of contact right now. And even further down the lineup with how some of the guys like Colt Keith hitting 6th, 7th, you probably wouldn't have him there. And even down further, having, Parker Meadows as high as he has been with how he's been playing, you probably wouldn't have him down or up as high as he's been. So everybody needs to relax. AJ is running a lot of matchups. And like you said, he's a switch hitter that gives him a whole lot of versatility. And you could throw him in there and be that superhero in the middle of the lineup and just kind of make a lot of people have a lot harder choices when it comes to pitching.
I don't know if we'll ever know what AJ's lineup construction would look like if he had, like, a position player for every position that is like set in stone, because I don't know if his tenure is ever going to look like that. I don't know if he builds teams like that at this point, and definitely not the way Scott's built the team so far. I do wonder if there was different personnel, or if people were hitting at a better clip at some points, that like it would force other people into different positions in the lineup. Like I think, again, and maybe I've mentioned this to you and maybe not said it on air, but like I think Parker Meadows struggling puts this lineup in a very precarious situation with Green specifically. I think, like, while I don't complain about Riley Green hitting like leadoff, I understand the principle of it. That's not the spot for him. Like, it's just not. Yes, he can draw a walk. Yes, it sets us up fine for the rest of the lineup, but like it just puts everyone else in a precarious position when Parker can't be the leadoff hitter. And then, yeah, I mean, Wenzel, I think, because he's switch hitter and because he can actually handle an at-bat, I think that puts him closer to the middle of the order than conventionally known. I don't think batting third was really anything that he envisioned. And you know, in a competent baseball team too. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, the Chicago White Sox, God forbid. But I do wonder if there was a different lineup construction if people were hitting well. Also, you bring it up, and it's meant to be said, or it has to be said at this point. Like the fact that both Javi and Torque did not play today, I think is speaking volumes on a lot of different things. I mean, today felt like the most must-win game we've had in the last 3 years, honestly. And that's crazy to say in April about baseball, about 162 season. I understand. I get all of that. But it still felt that way, and everyone showed up to do it. But the fact that Torque and Javi were not in the lineup, who Javi has been actually playing much better. He had 2 errors yesterday, and I think that was probably part of the reasoning. And then Torque had a really, really bad game, really tough game. Hopefully Torque can bounce back from the middle, from the second game of the series. But we won both of those games, right? And it very much felt like, okay, we're gonna have to bounce back tomorrow with the same guys. And then no, that's not at all what happened today. The lineup came out, and 2 marquee players are not going to help you contribute to, again, arguably one of the most must-win games we've played in 3.5 years of baseball. That's fascinating to me. But it just kind of shows where we're at, and it's also nice that we don't have to win with them. You know, we found other ways to win. Wenzel hit the big home run. Second takeaway of the week for me, Mark Canha just continues to be a baseball player, and like he's the most baseball player we've had, period. In definitely the Scott Harris era, and then, you know, even dating back to the last couple of years of Avila, like he has been such a complete player, and you just plug him in anywhere, you do anything, you put him anywhere in the lineup, and he's just gonna hit. Is he gonna come up with every clutch hit every time? No, you can't ask that of anyone. I mean, look at Carey. Like, Carey was on a crazy streak, and then you come into today, and he did get a knock, but it wasn't like the important knock that he needed when runners were on base. You can't ask 1 or 2 players to do everything, right? But it seems like Canha is just always there, contributing in some way, whether it be in the field, whether it be running the bases somewhat sneakily fast, and also just well in general. And then also with the bat, like we've seen it time and time again, he just comes up and he just produces one of the most competitive and mature at-bats we've seen out of this team in the last 2 or 3 years. And, you know, taking a look at his Baseball Savant page, I mean, you see a lot of red, but you also see kind of like some middling numbers too. He's not amazing at everything except for, you know, on-base percentage. His chase rate is insane. He doesn't whiff a lot, and he walks a lot. Outside of that stuff, you know, he's not going to blow you away offensively. He's only batting a .251 average in the month of April. But when you really dissect what this team needed, he was the player this team needed. Like, by far. You can even talk about someone like a Justin Turner, who's having an awesome start with the Blue Jays. you wanted him to kind of take over third base, and I think that I was a little reluctant to take that pick. Obviously, it's worked out for the Blue Jays, but like seeing Mark Canha and how much he's contributed really makes me think that like that Justin Turner pickup would have been just as good too, because it's the type of ball player that we need. This all around veteran that's seen some things, that can take people under their wing. Not necessarily going to be the most outspoken guy. You know, you're not going to get a lot of great comments out of or great quotes out of Mark Canha, but he's going to lead by example, and he's going to go out and do his business. And when he whatever he did after he hit the double today, I don't even know what little gesture he did to the dugout or whatever, but he's just fun guy to watch. He's just a fun guy to watch. He doesn't really know what he's doing at any given time when he's like, you know, celebrating or again giving a quote, but he's the guy that this team needed desperately. And to see him succeeding and to see him having a lot of fun on a team that, you know, I mean, we'll see what the year shakes out to be, but he's contributing to a lot of big wins right now, and that's really, really cool to see. As far as Mark Canha goes, what do you think has been the most impressive thing that you've seen from the veteran presence?
It's so funny. Two things that come to mind so far this year when you talk about Canha. Trying to put it into words, it really feels like whenever he's coming up to bat, you're sitting there on your couch and you're like, man, Canha, he really hasn't got a hit in a few games here, or it feels like he hasn't done something uber meaningful in a game or two. He comes up and hits a double, or slaps the ball the other way to drive in a runner from second, or moves up, it gets walked and moves up to third on a grounder through the infield and just makes a really good baseball play where you're like, wow, that's why he's on this team, because he can do all of those things that make a baseball team go. And it's really fun to watch. He's such a even-keeled emotional person until he does something big, and then, like you said, he does something very emotional on the bases after a big hit or a home run, or even if somebody else does. I mean, just in the last 2 days, his single to drive in, I think, Rogers yesterday,
Yep.
Just yelling at first base to the dugout, that kind of emotion is awesome. Like you said today, I question what exactly was going on.
He doesn't know, but it's a great word, emotion. You're right.
Slap himself on the butt, or I don't.
He did like a little one-legged thing and just like, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. I was like, what are we doing? That's not a thing that anyone's ever done before on this team, but here we go. This is happening.
My favorite part, though, was greeting Veerling at home plate last night
the hug
after Veerling's home run. The hug, yeah. And just yelling at him, and just that's the kind of glue veteran presence type of deal that you need to have. And I think that this Tigers team has been missing, because the veterans that have been brought in before this are not those kind of guys. And then it's not taking shots at anybody specifically. In this case, I could find a different time on a different episode to do that. Don't worry. But he's the guy that this Tigers team has needed right now. Like you said, just that veteran presence that knows when to push those emotional buttons.
Yeah, I think emotion is the exact word I was searching for. He brings such an emotional presence to this team that has been sorely lacked in that specific age group. He has such dad vibes for the team. Like he's kind of like that awkward guy that's just gonna kind of lead by example, and he's gonna go out and do his business. And that he's also a little bit older, and he's been around and seen some things. We talk about what the makeup of this team looks like, and what we want the makeup of this team to be for the next generation of Tiger fans. He embodies that, and he would be someone that I would love to see continue his career here, because I think he just fits very, very well. Now, of course, we said that about Jonathan Scope. We've said that about, maybe Robbie Grossman when he signed his 2-year deal or whatever. Like, I mean, it's the same thing, and maybe it sours a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to be souring on Canna anytime soon. I think again, we've seen some lulls from him offensively that, are like whatever, but he seems like a very complete baseball player, and for $10.5 million, we will very much take that, because it's a little bit of a steal, and that's where Scott Harris finds his gems, is just in the most in a lot of places where a lot of people wouldn't look. Didn't even know the Brewers were interested in trading Mark Canha, but here we are. It's our win. So, and you brought it up perfectly. The Matt Vierling home run. The last takeaway that I had for the week was just the must-win scenario of the Royals series. So we come into Detroit after winning the Tampa Bay series, but we lost in pretty striking fashion that final game. We tried to make a comeback. The comeback kiddies couldn't do it. And we lose that game 5-7. Then we come back into Detroit. Detroit is bumping because of the draft, which shout out to the Lions, shout out to Detroit as a whole. They showed up. They put out an amazing NFL draft that actually I even watched. I never watched the NFL draft. I don't care about the NFL really that deeply. I know the Lions are good now. We've had plenty of conversations about that. That's fun to watch, but it actually was kind of an interesting entertainment option when the off day was for the Tigers. So I was like, yep, we're gonna tune into that, and then we're gonna roll right into this Royals series, and then just to absolutely fall flat in our faces, lose 0-8 in game one, and we're like, oh no. And I was down pretty bad. It's probably pretty obvious to people, I am very, very bad at riding the highs and lows. Like, I'm not the most even keel person. I have those emotional roller coasters. You're way better at it than I am. It's 162 games, so it's very hard for me to be obsessed with the sport, but here we are. And you'd think I'd learn, but I just don't. And then, of course, we jump into the weekend, and Kasey has a rough inning, and it just looks like we're back to mediocre Tigers baseball. And it's something that I have been saying going into this Royals series for quite a long time, is that, this Royals team is a lot better than people are giving them credit for. Especially rivals of this team that, probably don't want to give this team as much credit as they probably deserve. They are a much better baseball team than what we've seen in the past. And I don't know, again, if it's just the exact right people that they acquired. I think a lot of it might have to do with this new management staff and some new personnel that they brought in, but they just have some kind of vibe. And the same thing with the Guardians, and they just kind of figured out how to win baseball games all of April. And so coming into it, I was like, I'm a little worried. And then, to have the bad game and then the bad inning from Kasey Mize, it's like, okay, here we go. But then just right back at it. Like we stayed in that game. The big blowout punch didn't come until late for the Tigers with the Matt Vierling 3-run homer. And that moment was probably the moment of the month so far of the season, really, when that ball somehow, it was divine intervention. You're not going to tell me any other way. The 14-degree launch angle and 110 off the bat, and there's only been 4 other home runs that have ever been a home run in the StatCast era since the StatCast era started. I think it was 2016 that's when that started. And there's only been 4 other home runs that have left the yard at 14 degrees, and it's only a home run in 7 ballparks. You're going to tell me that that's not divine intervention? No, that is 100% what it was meant to be. And that game was sloppy on all fronts. We should not have won that game. We had 3 or 4 errors. The errors are still coming back to bite us. AJ was even upset about the wins. Like, we can't keep on winning like that. It's terrible. It's fun, but like, it's not sustainable. And then again today, Tarek is I can't imagine how juiced Tarek was to start this, because he rides off of emotion too. He knows what's at stake. This probably felt like a must win to him too. And come out firing gas, and then, oh, yep, Garcia, little seeing eye double, and then Bobby Witt Jr., new enemy of the state, drives him in, and it's like, okay, here we go again. But today specifically, and obviously the Wenzel Perez home run helped out a lot, but it never really felt like we were out of it. It never really felt like we were overmatched at any given time. We were putting together really good at-bats against Michael Wacha. Credit to the whoever it is, if it's Berdar, if it's Robin Lund, or not Robin Lund. Who's the other? I always forget his name. Robin Lund's the other pitching coach, but
Berdar.
No, I know Berdar, but there's the other one. I forget the other one. There's two others that like we don't talk about that we should give credit to, but we always forget to. But Berdar's the face of it. But whoever's coming up with the hitting plans against the starters, finally the team is actually doing something against starters. And we were taking some good at bats against Wacha, and it just felt like, okay, that this team that we're fielding right now has a spark. It has some passion, and they're going to win this baseball game. And sure enough, 4-1, Foley comes out and does the thing. They needed to win this game as much as you need to win a game in April, and to at least, keep the faith a little bit. And they came up and they showed out. So I'm on cloud nine about it. I know it's tough to say for a game of April that is quote unquote must win, but it felt like that, and it felt like it was an important win to get under our belts, and an important series to overcome going into a rather tougher stretch in May. So what do you think of this Royal Series?
I mean, not to be whatever, but I kind of did call the entire week.
You're allowed to take credit. You're allowed to take credit. You did 100% say that they were going to win. I didn't believe you. I didn't want to believe it, but I'm very glad I was wrong.
And like the first game, I will admit, also made me doubt a little bit, because what's his name? For the pitcher for the Royals on Friday was he made us look like we were just complete fools at the plate, minus Parker, who got robbed, and I will but Parker did get robbed. I just want to make sure we're clear.
Parker did get robbed, and that moment was probably we probably experienced
momentum killer.
Well, but I was going to say we experienced both the lowest moment of April and the highest moment of April this last weekend. So again, riding the roller coaster of emotions. It was a rough week for Kasey Rose, or a rough weekend for Kasey Rose, but here we are. We've arrived.
Your statement about this series in general, and to be clear, your statement about this being the biggest series of the season so far, I don't think is wrong in the grand scheme of the season. I don't know how big of a series it's going to be. A series against a team in April. There's that quote that's going around, or that goes around every year. You can't win a division in April, but you can lose it in April. We're not at this point during this series. We were not at risk of losing the division this series, even if we did somehow get swept. We're not to that point. We've had good games against the Twins and the White Sox thus far. That would keep us in the division at this point. But it was a good series. I felt like we were lined up pitching wise to have a good series. Reese is going to give a good solid 5 to 6 innings. And we all know what Casey Mize is bringing to the table right now. He, like Flaherty, really needs to figure out the first and second inning. Even Skubal to some extent. It seems like the first few innings have been rather shaky for the starters. And even going back to Flaherty and Maeda's last starts, seems like teams early have a really good jump on what we're trying to do, and then the starters figure it out. So that's been a little wonky, but to have Mize and Skubal to finish up this series still gives you a better feeling, because those guys are probably going to give you a chance. So not quite as emotionally charged over on my front, just because I do tend to look at the more macro view of the whole season and what we have going on moving forward. But it was a really good series, and it does kind of propel us moving forward into May to hopefully continue to have this momentum moving forward.
Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal going back to back is literally what we dreamed of for the last 5 years. And so the fact that it's actually coming to fruition and it's actually producing wins in the baseball field is a beautiful thing. Now, something I want to put on your radar. It was pretty much a foregone conclusion at the beginning of the year that we thought there was no chance that the wild card would even be uttered from our own words. Okay?
I know where this is going.
Do you want to know who currently sits in the third wild card position of the AL?
It's the Tigers. Are we tied with Boston, or are we like a half game
Nope,
ahead of
the
them?
Red Sox lost tonight. It all comes together. See, the Red Sox were on Sunday Night Baseball, and
Wait, they did?
yeah, they lost. Or sorry, no, sorry, they won. My bad. They were.
You texted me.
I know,
earlier.
no, I know.
What?
I'm sorry, you're right. But even with the good call, but even with the win, they start half a game back. But they were on Sunday Night Baseball. That's why I cared about watching the game. It all comes back. And I've been watching a lot of Guardians games. It's not healthy. None of this is healthy, but it is. This is my life in baseball season. Yes, the Tigers are currently holding the third spot of the AL wild card. I just want to put this on people's radars that there is a realistic possibility, especially after April, that the wild card actually is something that we talk about this year and something that is actually an avenue for us to get into the postseason. I don't know how. I don't know why. It's all gonna. Again, the Central is a lot better. Again, don't know why. Don't know how. Central's a lot better than what we previewed it to be. What really anyone previewed it to be. At least in April, I know. It could change in a flash, but the Guardians look pretty legit for all of the month. And when you're the best team in the MLB, I think it means something. I genuinely think it means something. Because yes, you can't win a division in April, like you were saying, like the quote says. You can definitely lose it, yes, but then also like the flip side of it, like okay, if there's teams that are doing good and doing well, and you don't want to necessarily like put too much credence on that, what about the teams that are doing bad? Like, do we just believe that they're bad now? Like, for instance, the Astros. Like, there has to be some kind of middle ground, and we have to just start to accept that, like, okay, maybe these teams are actually, this is the year that this is what it's going to look like. The Guardians are going to be a little bit better than we thought. The Royals are going to be a little bit better than we thought, and now like teams like the Astros are just not good right now, and they just are not going to be able to climb out of the hole. The A's are currently ahead of the Astros and the Angels in the West. Does that mean anything? I don't know, but it's kind of fun to think about. So the current wild card prediction is, or the preview of it is, Baltimore has a 1.5 game lead. The Royals have a half game lead on us, and again, this is why this series was important. And yes, the Tigers are the third wild card. Cleveland, the Yankees, and Seattle. God, the Mariners. Do you know what the Mariners' record is?
They're pretty close to 500, are they not?
Well, they're 15-3, and they're winning their division. They are the West somehow is the new Central.
15-13.
Don't know how that happened. Yep, 15-13. And they're winning the division. We're 16-12, and we're third in our division. Just putting it all in context. It's just all very, very interesting. But I digress. What were your few takeaways from this week of baseball?
We'll circle back to this for my final takeaway, but we'll start off with something I noticed this afternoon in watching some clips. We need to have a conversation, and this is a very, very positive thing, but we need to have a conversation about Kerry Carpenter and the type of hitter that he has really worked hard to become this year. Going off of Baseball Savant, last year he had a pull percentage of 44%. And for those of you who don't know, I'm referring to pull, straight, or opposite, or oppo statistics. That just basically says, hey, when this guy puts the ball in play, it either goes to the pull side, in his case to right field, straight to center field, or left or opposite to the left field side. And for most hitters, especially most power hitters, which is what he was last year, you're going to have a higher pull percentage. So last year, his pull percentage was 44%, straight percentage was 32.6%, and opposite percentage was 23%. So all things considered, pull hitter, mostly pull side, then a little bit up the middle, last amount of time opposite field. This year, he is pulling the ball 37% of the time as opposed to 34% of the time, or 44% of the time. He is hitting straight away 36% of the time instead of 32% of the time. And he is hitting the ball the opposite way 27% of the time rather than 23% of the time. And it's something he had an interview on in spring training where he said he's trying to become a more complete hitter, where he's trying to, put the ball in play more, have a little bit better bat to ball skills, as well as adding that just to his power. And I think that's a huge deal because he's actually putting it into fruition. He's hitting the ball to other fields for base hits, not necessarily power, but that's okay because if you want to isolate your power to one part of the ballpark and still be able to put the ball in play to left field as a left-handed hitter, it's going to make him a lot harder to pitch around and a lot harder to for AJ to take out of the lineup against a lefty, because he's doing it against left-handed pitching as well. His splits are not awful this year, and the run that he's been on the last couple weeks is making it very difficult for AJ Hinch to pull from a game when a lefty reliever is brought in. So, any thoughts on Carey's start to the year here?
Well, it's been magnificent. I think he's been everything we could ask for. Maybe a little bit more pop than he's produced a little less pop than we wanted to see. We wish there was a little bit more home run power there, but I'm totally okay with the profile that he's garnering at the moment. It just reminds me the endless amount of quotes that you can come up with Miguel Cabrera talking about what a complete hitter is and what a real person in his position needs to do in order to be a contributing factor on the team. Just the entire time in batting practice, taking the ball for Miggy, right field, for Carey, left field, and just staying through the ball. Yes, you can have pull power in that, and that's where you want to isolate things, and that's totally fine. But I mean, and Carey can get one to center field and off to left as well. He had that awesome home run last year over the Green Monster. But I think I like this version of Carey Carpenter more than just the 240s, 250s average power hitter who doesn't get on base a lot. I think that this version of Carey Carpenter fits this team a lot more, or a lot better, and it's kind of more of a Riley Green type of look. And there was that stretch where AJ couldn't leave him in against lefties, and like he was talking about, and you guys will see it's not just about a righty lefty matchup or whatever, but he has actually gotten some important at bats against lefties, and he's been able to hold his own. Is it fantastic? No, but it's all part of the maturation process of Carey Carpenter, and seeing him be able to just kind of bloop one over the shortstop or bloop one over the third baseman, and just they may not be the loudest hits or the biggest exit velocity, which is a lot of people care about nowadays. It's still contributing, and it's still putting the ball in play and typically leading to an RBI. And that's something this team just needs. We just need people who can get the runners who are on base home. And again, that's why I think this profile fits a little bit better with what we're working with now. So I think the power will come again. I think he's going to start, ripping the ball again to right field. That'll be fun to watch, of course, too. But it's totally fine. I'm very okay with him being a little bit more of a spray hitter as it goes. So big things have come and already taken place for Carey Carpenter. I'm excited to see where the rest of the season goes.
Speaking of right field in the recently adjusted dimensions at Comerica Park, we need to have a very interesting conversation that I was not anticipating having probably a week ago. But the Tigers' record at Comerica Park is something that we need to have a conversation about. because as of this year, the Tigers are as of tonight, they are 6-8 at home, and they are 10-4 on the road this year. And there's a great tweet from a couple days ago after the first Royals loss this series on Friday from Mr. Chris Brown, big proponent of Mr. Chris Brown. If you haven't gotten into any of his stuff on Twitter or X, go ahead and give him a follow, Chris Brown 0914. But his tweet is the Tigers this year at home 4-8. This is 2 days ago, 4-8 with a negative 21 run differential, and on the road 10-4 with a plus 20 run differential. The really interesting part is the second half of this tweet, where it says home record since the start of 2023, start of last year, home record 41-52 with a negative 95 run differential, and a road record of 51-44 with a plus 15 run differential. Now, a couple things. A lot of the run differential numbers here are highly affected by the start to this year, and I think it's just exacerbating those numbers. Because you take that out, and their run differential is set negative 74 and negative 5 for those in those games, and the win loss is a little bit better as well. But the difference in these records is very, very confusing, because for the most part, as a baseball team or any sports team, home field advantage is supposed to mean something. You're supposed to, generally speaking, you're supposed to have a better record at home. You're comfortable. You get to go home every night. You're used to the dimensions of the ballpark, the crowd. You get to play off of the crowd. All of those intangible things, you have those going for you at home. You get last at bats, the whole deal. You're supposed to have a better record at home. And the Tigers are not able to, in the last couple of years, really leverage that. Do you have any thoughts on what could be happening at Comerica Park for the Tigers, Kasey?
I'm not really convinced we've had a home field advantage the last 3 years. Ergo, the crowd just hasn't been there. I mean, the last 2 days were awesome, right, with the draft situation and everyone kind of bumping in Detroit, and it really felt like the crowd lifted us to some of those hits and a lot of that victories, or a lot of the reason we got those victories. I'm not convinced that this has really been a very inviting place for the Tigers to come back to the last 2 or 3 years. And yeah, I think it's an interesting coincidence now that the fences are moved in. I do wonder what that has done to our extra base potential now that it's not such a doubles friendly or triples friendly ballpark, which was an interesting effect of moving the fences in. Yes, maybe more home runs, but now there's less extra base hits as a whole. Probably unforeseen on some of those things, but I truly don't know if the being able to say that we have last at bats, we really weren't a comeback team that much the last couple of years. We had a couple moments for sure throughout the years, but it really never felt like we were in baseball games that we pretty much gave up on at any given point. But this year, it seems like we were able to stay in ball games a little bit better. The eighth inning for that stretch of 2 or 3 weeks was just our friend, and it really propelled us to a lot of different things. I think for some reason there is this mantra when this team goes on the road that we're going to beat you, and we're going to beat you in front of your home crowd or beat you in front of your fans, that they for some reason just don't take, and they don't take into account where they're at when they're at Comerica. I don't know if there's an exact right or wrong answer as to why they haven't been that productive at home, but clearly the numbers are in the run differential, like you went over, is pretty stark. And the pitcher's ballpark doesn't seem to be the case for the Tigers. It seems like they were a lot of the pitchers get shafted pretty quickly at Comerica. They just don't bring their A game, and that again comes down to the fact that the crowd just hasn't shown up the last few years. And I think now that things are starting to change, starting to sell a few more tickets, I do think that they're gonna play a factor. The fans and the field, the home field advantage might start to creep back in. We'll see how it plays out, but I do pause because it's like, okay, this team, if we want to be a winning baseball team, it's important to win at home. And there's been plenty of times and been plenty of examples where teams have made it to the playoffs or even done well in the series or in the regular season, and they haven't played their best baseball at home, but they're generally pretty close to 500. The stark difference between our home and away records is pretty crazy to start off the year, and obviously it has been the last year and a half. So I don't know. I don't have too many tangible reasons as to why. I do think that crowd situation is definitely been a big contributing factor of it. What do you think? Do you have any specific ideas why we play worse at home?
No, we need to go back to the original, the year 2000 dimensions for the park. And the center field needs to be back to 440.
And also the flagpole needs to be in center field.
In play. We need to have Riley back in center field. Just we need another obstacle out there for him to dive into or get hurt on. That's what I think.
It probably wouldn't be good for him. He probably would run into it the first chance he got.
Yeah. No, it's just one of those things. I think it will even out a little bit. We have had some very weird things happen at home this year for some reason. That Twins series with a doubleheader where third base was cursed for 2 games straight. Just the A's series was at home, so there's some very weird things that just happen to have happened at home, I think. So I think that's part of it, at least this year. The longer term trend is a little concerning, but I mean, who knows? As long as the Tigers are winning more games than they're losing, I don't really mind. But if it starts to become a factor where we're now losing a lot of games at home and it's dragging us down, then we probably need to revisit the topic. But my last takeaway, and this is something that I've been avoiding for at least 1 week here. We need to do a little intervention time. And I thought this would be good for the both of us to just, if we have one pressing issue we need to get off our chest about this, just each other and what we're thinking with this team, I think this is a good place. And I'll start it off. I think, Kasey, if we're being honest with ourselves, you've been a little bit affected by the last couple years, the Phillies and the Diamondbacks, teams like that have made the playoffs as a wild card team and have made runs to the World Series. And we need to keep our minds and our expectations back with what's feasible for this team. And you mentioned the wild card thing earlier, and I felt like that was a good lead in here. But the Tigers are exactly where we thought they would be. They're right where we predicted they would be this year. The thing is, the Guardians and the Royals have had a better start record-wise than we have this year. But, circling back to my last sentence, the Tigers are still at 16 wins with a couple games to play in May. We're going to have a better April than we have had at any point under the AJ Hinch tenure. And the team tends to warm up and play well throughout the rest of the season. And there's a lot of positive things happening for this Tigers team. And it feels like recently the pressure has been ratcheted up by a certain co-host of mine because of the performance of a couple other teams in April. And I think, Kasey, we both need to agree that we need to maybe ratchet down the emotion a little bit and get grounded in where this team is actually at and the improvement that they've made from the last few years. What is that? Is that too much to ask?
I'm over here cackling. I'm dying over here. This little safe space you created is for sure something. I'm very glad to have entered the safe space. That is Tiger's podcast topic. No, I'm gonna be honest with you. No, I don't. I don't think I'm going to. And I hear what you're saying with the Diamondbacks and the Phillies thing. I guess there may be some correlation there. I don't think there's causation there for sure. It really just comes down to I'm tired of losing, and I'm tired of being the laughing stock of the AL. Not just the AL Central, not just our division as a whole. Really baseball as a whole. Like it seems like the Tigers have just been an afterthought for so long, and finally we have a team that can actually, and we have personnel, and we have managerial staff, and we have a GM and a president of baseball operations that actually cares about this team, and what they're trying to do, and not that Al Avila didn't care, but he clearly didn't have the best interest for this team. It just seems like stars are aligning, and when things like the Guardians having a really a world-class April, and the Royals playing much better baseball than we really envisioned, yes, you can get kind of caught up in the moment, but these are teams that no one really thought were going to be able to do what they're doing, and they're doing it. And it's frustrating on a lot of levels, because it's like you look at the hodgepodge lineup of the Guardians, you look at the pitching staff of the Royals, and you say, these are beatable baseball teams. But for some reason in April, they just came together and they just decided to win, and they just decided to win a lot. And yes, I think that we can reposition ourselves and we can say, oh, maybe it's just not really our year. I don't think settling for that is really where I know it's not where AJ's at, and I know it's not where this team is at. And so I think, you say that like this team is exactly where we thought they were going to be. No, they're not. I mean, not to be whatever, but you thought they were going to be under 500. And so I think this team is, and not to be whatever, we're not playing to our fullest potential. We have a lot of struggling players, and I mean really, really struggling players, and we're still winning baseball games. We have the most errors over the last week and a half of baseball, and we're still winning baseball games. This team is not that bad, and we're not this incremental, like, oh, we're going to be a little bit better this year. Like, no, the expectation should be to be in the playoffs this year. This team is a good baseball team, and really, I know it's hard to believe, because we really have been scared to believe it for the last 3 years. It is a good baseball team, and to hold them to a standard of, oh, we're gonna have incremental improvement, oh, it's a good April, yada, like, no, I'm so past that. I'm so beyond that. I have a different standard. I think the team should be held to a different standard. I think the players on the team should be held to a different standard. And if they're not contributing, I think they should be kicked to the curb. And that's just the way I envision it. I understand a lot of that's dramatic. I understand a lot of that's emotional. But it's where we're at. And it's where we have to be if we want to be in the conversation for playoff baseball. So I'm not going to get rid of my passion.
It's not where we're at. I think the expectations have to be adjusted per where the other teams in the Central are. The expectation for the playoffs that we had at the beginning of this year was an expectation that the AL Central was going to be a pretty easily winnable division.
For sure. But we have the wild card. We have the wild card, though.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we actually are going to
contribute. The wild card is the Tigers against 14 other teams, mm-hmm. rather than the Central against 4 other teams. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is I'm not saying, and I need to make this clear in my presentation as well, I'm not saying the Tigers need to be satisfied with 16-12, or we need to be satisfied with the sloppy brand of baseball that we've been playing either. I think that we need to be taking those as more of a promise of better play to come, rather than a detriment to what we've already accomplished. We both predicted just right around mid 80s wins for this team this year. It was before the season. We both predicted, I think I predicted 84 wins. I think you predicted 87 wins. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But I don't know if 87 wins on the optimistic side will win the Central this year if play continues from the Royals and the Guardians like it has. I just don't think that's going to be possible. And then you flip that on its head. I think 87 wins keeps us in the wild card conversation until middle of September, but I do think we fall away a little bit if we're at that pace.
Yeah, I'd want to be clear. It was I predicted 85 wins because I did the little flipperoo. I think you were below me. I don't remember the exact number that you were at, but I did 85 and 77 because we won 77 games last year. But I
got it.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I don't know if 85 wins gets us into any playoff conversation, but here's where we're at. Right, we're at 16-12 at the end of April. We have the potential to be, again, if everything goes right, 18-12 to end April. We need to start acting like we're an 18-12 or 16-12 baseball team. Again, I don't think complacency is anything that AJ or his staff privies themselves to or really even thinks about at all. We know they care about winning today's game. We know they care about the series that's ahead and always playing where your head's at, playing where your feet's at. But the fact that this baseball team is not firing at all cylinders and still winning baseball games is an important note to make. And I'm just saying, I think we can hold ourselves to a little bit higher standard. So,
I guess my last request on this category, let's be thankful for what we do have as well.
True.
Because
true.
We haven't had this kind of excitement about baseball in Detroit in April since Wenzel Perez was a teenager, for reference.
He was still in the womb when.
Wow.
No, he's 24. You said, right?
Yeah, he was born in '99.
Yeah, so that baseball team was not very good. So.
No. Is there anything you wanted to get off your chest about my Tigers fandom while we're here, while we're in this bubble?
No, I mean, I don't know. I think you're down on some things that you don't need to be down on. I think we need to be in a place of acceptance that the Guardians and the Royals are better baseball teams. I think that just has to be said. I know it's only April. I know it's like whatever. But I think, if we're going to rise to the occasion, which we did this weekend. It's very amazing. We've got to start playing a different and a better brand of baseball, and again, holding ourselves to a different standard. So no, I don't have any qualms with your baseball fandom. I think we're just both very, it's the normal thing of the whole opposites thing. We just have different things that we look out for in baseball. We have very, very different takeaways from different things, and then also we project those into either the small scale or the large scale macro level in very different ways. And I think that makes for honestly a good podcast, because we just have different views on these things. So I'm perfectly okay with being the emotional. I'm trying to think of an alliteration for that. Emotional Emily. In this situation, you can be the stagnant Stan. I don't know. Whatever. Stagnant. That was just the first names that I thought of.
Here's what I'll say about the Royals and Guardians. I'll publicly say this in reference to your
stagnant Stacy. How about that? You're getting stagnant Stacy.
There you go. Royals, I will concede, are better than I thought they would be. Mm-hmm. Their pitching staff is having an unreal start to the year. The names in their lineup, surely an offensive regression is coming, but their pitching staff looks really good. And Brady Singer actually looks much better than he has in years past. I refuse to have any sort of conversation in reference to the Tigers and Guardians until I've seen them play each other. And they'll play each other in May. But I do want to see how this Tigers team plays the Guardians. Because if we can beat the Guardians this year again, like we did last year, I think it gives us, again, a good chance in this division. So I don't want to commit to anything. Their series against the Braves was an interesting thing to watch, though I will say that.
Best record in baseball. That's all I'm going to say. Best record in baseball.
Bonkers.
Andy Ibanez is coming off the IL. Most likely tomorrow. Any hot takes of who's gets sent down? Are we just going with the normal Buddy Kennedy? That's going to be the switcheroo. They have the Tigers have a lot of slumping players, especially in the infield, and
I think
there's conversations that could be had.
I think Buddy Kennedy is the safe option, and I think he'd be the slam dunk option, if not for Torque not playing today.
There's a real world, dude. There's a real world where Torkelson gets sent down. I can't even believe. Like the one. Here's what's the scariest part of that: the fact that you're kind of entertaining that idea. Because I mean, Torque's your dude. Like Torque is your guy. Torque will always be your guy. I'm very happy for the second half that he had that year, or last year rather. This start to this year has been very bad. The fact that you're entertaining that he could be the option to come down is bonkers to me. That's wild.
To be clear, I think Torque has a better start to the year than Colt Keith. But, I think the contract situation,
some money situation,
I think warrants him getting a little bit longer leash when it comes to that. But to be honest with you, if I had to pick one of these guys to go down, I think it is Colt out of the options. He just looks like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders on every single play. And to be fair, he has cleaned up the defensive stuff that he had a couple weeks ago, where there was like 3 or 4 days in a row where he had a really bad error. But he seems to have cleaned that up. But man, at the plate, he is trying to lift the 1,000-pound dumbbells at all times. And I think he needs just to go back to AAA for 2 weeks, maybe 3, and just have some success, and just to get his timing back and get his self-belief back at this point, because he really feels like he's spinning his tires a bit.
It's really depressing to watch. Like, it's like really sad to watch. He just he doesn't know what he needs to do to get a hit. There's countless really good plays being made against him. He's hitting the ball hard at different points, and he's just he's not slamming his helmet down. Credit to him. He's not slamming his bat down. He's not breaking bats or anything like that. That's all really good. He's got a good head on his shoulders, but it's not working out right now. I mean, the number one prospect in baseball had to be sent down. We're talking about Jackson Holliday, of course, of the Orioles. He looked like a guy off the street. Just walk to the batter's box. So it happens, and it's gonna be okay. These things take time, and different levels have different progression levels for sure. This guy has hit at every level he's been at, and I don't think the majors are gonna be any different. It's just like what you said, that self-belief, that confidence. We all see it. What happens when Torque, and I really think Torque is 1 home run away from going on a crazy run. I think it's just, again, self-belief for both of these guys. When they have a little bit of self-confidence, when they are playing with a little bit of chip on their shoulders, it's a night and day difference. Look at Skubal. Skubal, when he walks on the mound, he knows he's going to pitch a shutout. Whether he actually does or not, he has so much self-belief that he's going to walk out there and throw up zeros that it just kind of happens. And when you manifest these things, it's very, very easy to have and build that self-confidence. When you don't, that's when you really figure out who you are as a player. And so, while it would be awesome if the Tigers could give him time, and I know we're in a situation where they want to give their young players time. It goes back to the whole record thing. Like you don't want to waste what we're doing right now. And now that we're actually in a competitive divisional race, competitive wild card race, you cannot waste some of these wins. And yes, we're winning without them right now, and that's great. But with, having a roster spot being taken up by someone who could be a contributing factor is not the good look that you want. You look at someone like Keston Hiura, who is having a great start to AAA. He has a couple opt-outs if he doesn't get brought to the majors. So that's an interesting option. I think Canna's play at first base today was pretty eye-opening. He's had a couple starts at first and not really, I mean, not too many hard hit balls have been hit to him, but today they were. And he actually was able to make some good plays. We're talking about someone who has basically never played first base until this year. And I think we can both agree it's not going to be Wenzel. It's just you cannot send down Wenzel Perez right now, and I mean I think I'm speaking for you too that he's not going to be the option. So you're left with this quartet of Parker, Colt, Torque, or Buddy Kennedy, and it's like, well, yeah, the path of least resistance is Buddy Kennedy, but he's kind of been good too. If I had to put money on it, I would say Buddy. If I just the gut reaction, just to not spark anything. But I would agree with you. I think Colt would probably be the next option. Again, it speaks volumes to where we're at that we're even entertaining the idea that Spencer could be sent down. But we'll see. Maybe there's going to be some breaking news come tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. Real quick, the beautiful, wonderful play-by-play hosts of Jason Benetti and Dan Dickerson have just fantastic chemistry, and decided that their off-camera shenanigans should be brought to on camera, and they have started a new podcast. It's called Have a Seat, a Detroit Tigers podcast. Highly recommend it. I know we're a Detroit Tigers podcast. No qualms, no issues in saying that they are fantastic at what they do. They get paid to do what they're doing. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they have really great connections, so the interviews are going to be fantastic. Go give it a listen. Go give it a follow. Their first interview is AJ Hinch, and it was quite eye-opening, let me tell you. We learned that AJ hates water. He is scared to swim, so that was a pretty funny image. Learned about some of his Diamondback years and some lineup construction, and just very, very eye-opening conversation with Dan Dickerson, Jason Benetti, and AJ Hinch. What were some of your takeaways from that? I think it was about 45-minute interview with AJ Hinch.
It really, and I was telling a coworker this the other day, it really felt like it came across simultaneously that AJ Hinch is a very, very, very smart human being, but is also just one of the guys all at the same time. And I think that's what makes him loved by his players, is that they know that he is super smart and super talented at being a manager. And clearly he's won World Series and had the experience, but he's also one of the guys when it comes down to it. And his conversation about how the pitchers try to only get a fist bump from him and not a handshake.
Dude, that was so good. And it changes with the bullpen and the starters. The starters don't want a fist bump because they don't want to go back in the game. They want the handshake, and the starters are like, give me the fist bump. It's so good.
Just him talking about the pitchers watching tape of what he does when he goes on the mound, and even the conversations of him having with the pitchers of just like, well, you let Verlander stay in the game when you came out to talk on the mound, and he's like, yeah, none of you guys are Verlander. So
none of you guys are Garrett Cole. None of you guys are Justin Verlander. It's so good.
It was so funny. That was a good point in the episode. I really enjoyed.
The whole he thinks he's a good handyman but isn't a good handyman. That he's like, I want
a guy thing.
I want to believe that I'm good at all these things, but I'm just not. Yeah, I could listen to AJ Hinch talk for 2 months straight and still be entertained. I mean, he had a lot of things to say about like great athletes, just great historical figures in general. Benetti is also just a fantastic interview. I think the way interviewer, I should say, the way he brings up questions, and some of the questions they're so off the wall and they kind of catch you off guard, but then you really think about what he's asking. It's like, oh, dang, that's good. Like you're really trying to get somewhere here. And then the chemistry between him and Dan, of course, is fantastic. They did like a one-off, like 15-minute episode just to kind of introduce things. And that's, of course, where I had first heard, I didn't know this, but the whole Dan Dickerson getting an inning from Ernie Harwell in the last game.
Was so cool.
Right? The last game at Tiger Stadium. you're just going to hear so many cool little tidbits that you're not going to get anywhere else. And it's credit to, the marketing team of the Tigers, the PR team of the Tigers, the social media team of the Tigers. They've really stepped it up the last couple of years because they've had to. I think when you're a mediocre baseball team and you don't expect a lot of yourselves, it's easy just to kind of let those things go by the wayside. I think Scott made it a plan and a mission that the public view of this baseball team is going to be a positive one. And I don't know if he's in charge of all the decisions. I don't know, I don't know who really is the final mark against those things, but he definitely plays a role because the last 2 years have been markedly different than what we've seen. So the minds that put this together, that are able to, take 45 minutes to an hour out of their week. It sounds like it's going to be like 2 times a month or something like that. Hats off to them because this is something, good organizations do. And so that's a lot of fun. Go listen to it. Go give it a listen. It's fantastic. I think the next interview is going to be our friend Tarek Skubal. So we'll see, but yeah, looking forward to the next one. May is upon us. Josh, I'm going to be 26 in May.
That's wild.
Oh, man. This is going to be... I feel like an old man. That kind of hit me like a ton of bricks right there. I mean, that's only 4 away from 30.
I am going to be... am I a year older than you?
No, I thought I was older than you.
I'm currently 27.
What? No.
I'm pretty sure.
No, you're not.
See, after 21, I
you're
stopped
not
counting.
27. You were born in 98.
Hold on.
Oh, this is an all-time moment. This is an all-time.
Yeah, this is going to be really bad if I'm... Oh, look at that. I'm 26.
Are you already 26? When did you turn 26? What month? I forget when your birthday is.
In a raw, unedited moment here, folks, Josh doesn't know how old he is, nor does he know how time works.
Yeah, I think you're 25.
This is where it's embarrassing that I know people that listen to the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I will be hearing about this. So, I will be deferring any further questions as to my date of birth.
You got it. To your parents? Anyway, I know how old I'm 98% confident I'm 25 and I'm going to be 26. Anyways, I feel old and that's all I was trying to get out of that comment. Sorry that
completely derailed the whole thing.
Took it a whole different way. No, it's totally fine. That's an all-time moment. So we're starting off the month at the last game of the Cardinal series. And then we play the Yankees, which in New York, by the way, that'll be just a whole hoot and holler of fun. Then it is the big series that I have circled 3 times over for you specifically. We're going to play the Guardians in Cleveland. Look forward to that. And to see if the Guardians are actually a real baseball team, according to Josh. And then we play Houston, who, again, had a terrible April. I take from that what you will. Then the Marlins, who also had a terrible April. Then the Diamondbacks, who had a mediocre April. We play Kansas City again. Then we're back home against the Blue Jays. 4-game series against the Blue Jays, who, they hovering right around 500, but they definitely didn't have the April they wanted. Then we play the Pirates again. They got off to a hot start. They're under 500 now. And then we end the month in Boston. I think this is a very top-heavy month, to be honest with you. I think the first couple weeks are going to be the challenge, and then I think it gets significantly easier as it goes along. Are there any specific series that you've kind of highlighted or circled that you wanted to talk about or go over?
The first thing I wanted to say about the May schedule is I think that the landscape of baseball currently is going to be different very, very different when we get to the end of April. I think a lot of these mediocre teams that had kind of a slow or middling start are going to either have figured it out in a big way or fallen off the map completely. I'm looking at you, both Arizona and Houston. I think that, again, like you, the Cleveland series is one that I am very, very interested in watching, just to see how the two teams matched up, as I said earlier. New York will be interesting as well. This, like you, I do think that this is a little top heavy, but I don't think that last week and a half of Toronto, Pittsburgh, Boston, I think that is going to be a rough stretch there.
True.
We never seem to play the Pirates fantastic for some reason, and we all have nightmares of going to Fenway Park. It's just not worked out well for us in the past.
I still see Torrey Hunter flipping over the fence in my nightmares.
Do you remember for a while there, MLB TV, one of the ads that ran 3 times a game was just the highlight clip of that?
Mm-hmm.
I swear they ran that more for Tigers fans than anybody else.
Yeah, just specifically for
because.
Us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. PTSD will derail you. Yeah, I think the harder you look at it, the more teams like Miami and Houston potentially can maybe serve as a reprieve. But like we've said before, the Tigers seem to play to their competition, so I think they need to make sure that Miami series in the middle of the month is not a must sweep situation. I think that's one of the big goals for the month for me. So
27 total games. I'm not going to ask you what our record's going to be by the end of May, but I do want to know, will we still be over 500 by the end of May?
I don't want to answer. I feel like if I answer one way, I'm going to be one guy. Mm-hmm. And then if I answer another way, I'm going to be the other guy, and I don't want to be either guy.
So what I feel like by that dodgy kind of no answer, you're saying that May is the new April. That's what
I don't know about all that. Let's I think you're very quickly forgetting how poor April was the last few years.
It's been I don't forget. It's been bad. I have the receipts. I'll go out and say it. I'm willing to say that we'll still be above 500. Where and how many games above 500, I don't know, but I'm willing to say.
I say we will either be at or slightly above 500.
Oh, okay, wow. A little bit of improvement from your April prediction, of course. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, it all starts with the continuing homestand against St. Louis. The vaunted St. Louis Cardinals that I absolutely loathe. I will say I think the Royals have supplanted them as my most hated team currently, and I know that's a very emotionally charged situation just based on the series. But I have a lot of disdain for the St. Louis Cardinals. You and your wife specifically know that, of course. We got Kenta against Matt. We got Flaherty against Gibson, and we got Reese Olson against Miles Michaelis. How are we going to fare in this St. Louis series? I want to sweep them so bad. So badly.
Well, we're at home, so that won't happen.
True. Good point.
I think it will shape up to be a very interesting series because both teams will not have their, I think, number one or number two starter pitching in this series, which is a bummer for the Tigers because I would have loved to hit our friend Lance Lynn pretty hard. Again, we've made a habit of it in recent years. But on the other end of it, the Cardinals also don't have to face Skubal or Mize this series. I if I had to pick, I would rather them go against New York than against the Cardinals. The Cardinals have had quite the up and down April. Somehow they're almost at 500, and it is an improvement for them over last year as well. But I don't know. It'll depend on which Cardinals team shows up, because very much like the Tigers, they seem to have a case of the Jekyll and Hydes. So I think a series win would be good. I would love to see a series win in the Cardinals series to make the trip to New York a bit more positive, because who knows how that will end.
I do think you bring up a good point about dodging Sonny Gray. I think he's been on another planet so far. I think the fact that we don't have to face him is, he just seems like the pitcher that we just do not match up well against. Us also not having Kasey or Tarek during the series is also very scary. Kenta had a much better start last time out. Very positive to see. Very excited about that. Hopefully he can continue the trajectory. Jack, less so, of course. Still looking for some fastball command. Still looking. And by the way, real quick, I know I had that whole dissertation on his fastball last week, and it's an interesting kind of jumping off point. I was bringing up the fact that he needs to throw more fastballs. It's interesting because this year as a whole is the year of killing fastballs. I want to be clear that I am aware that as a whole, the MLB is throwing, I think, like 6 or 7% less fastballs, 14 fastballs specifically, and Jack is removed from that. I think he is not purposefully not throwing the fastball. Like, I just want to be clear about that. He is clearly trying to throw the fastball, but it's just not working out for him. And so, yes, if you look at the statistics, the entire world, leading by the Red Sox, are not throwing fastballs whatsoever. And they're throwing a lot of off-speed pitches, and the sinker's making a little bit of a comeback. Jack Flaherty, he is trying his darndest to throw a good fastball, and it's not working out for him. So, quick aside on that, but I understand that the fastball is kind of dying as of 2024. But and then we got Reese Olson, who again, it's kind of hit or miss with Reese, so we'll see how it goes. I, of course, would like a series win. We'll see. How do you plan, and how do you typically deal with a house divided that you have to deal with when the Cards are in town?
The last couple of years, fortunately, I think the last 2 years, it has been very one-sided. I think the Tigers have handled the Royals the last couple of years.
The Cardinals.
Or the Cardinals, rather. Sorry, wrong Missouri team.
Mm-hmm.
They have handled their business, and I think that has helped because I am much more of a sore loser than my wife is. Shockingly, the competitive man is the big baby. Anyway, it typically works out better, but then again, I think this year is different because a lot of my wife's Royals fandom was very much bruised with their year last year. So we'll see. I think it's a kind of a hit or miss situation.
Okay, interesting. I expected a little bit more pizzazz there. I thought you guys were gonna have to like be in like the what are those jackets? The tight
straight jackets?
Yeah, the straight jackets. There we go. Thank you. And I thought you guys were going to have to stay on each side of the couch and handle the baby and, whoever blinks first. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Seems a little bit more of a healthy relationship than I had imagined when the Cardinals and the Tigers are playing. And then, yeah, like you alluded to, 3 against New York. That series is up in the air. Who knows? I don't think I can, on solid ground, say that we're going to win that series. That would just be me being a complete Tigers stan. But think about who we have pitching, Josh. Think about who we have pitching.
Kenta Maeda in Game 3.
Okay, think about who we have pitching. First 2 games. I'm just, again, we don't have any announcements. It's all still TBD, but Kasey Mize, Tarek Skubal, I always feel confident in those two taking the bump. So we shall see. It'll be a fun series nonetheless. Or maybe I'll just cry a bunch. Who knows? Josh, where can the kids find us?
We are on all your socials at Old English D Pod, and we're on all of the podcasting platforms, wherever you listen to them. Give us a download, give us a follow, a 5-star rating, review, whatever you can do. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys listening. We're trying to record a little earlier so we can get this edited and out to you guys on time on Tuesday. Hopefully we have a couple Tigers wins under our belt at that point. In the meantime, go Tigers, guys. We really appreciate you listening.
Absolutely. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. As always, guys, thank you so much for listening. And as always, go Tigers.